Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by telling you something that will sting. Most of you have been trying to learn English the wrong way your entire life. You've been taught that learning a language is about memorizing lists of words, repeating grammar drills, and waiting patiently for fluency to magically arrive after years of casual practice. That's a lie. The truth is, you can learn English much, much faster than you think if you stop babying yourself, stop waiting for permission, and start training your brain the way it was designed to adapt, evolve, and master new skills. I'm not here to give you cliches like watch movies with subtitles or download an app. You've heard that nonsense already. I'm here to rip apart the excuses, expose the truth about how your mind works, and show you how to take ownership of this process so completely that you'll be embarrassed you ever thought English was difficult in the first place. Because the science is clear. The human brain is a language machine. It's wired to acquire, adapt, and absorb patterns of speech at speeds that most of you can't even comprehend. The problem isn't that English is too hard. The problem is that your approach is too soft. Let me give you an image. Imagine a child, 3 years old, maybe 4, barely tall enough to reach the kitchen counter. That child doesn't sit down with a grammar book. They don't study vocabulary list. They don't analyze sentence structure. Yet by the time they're ready for school, they can communicate fluently in their native language. Why? Because they are immersed. They are desperate to be understood. They are emotionally charged. Every time they want a cookie, or they want attention, or they want to avoid trouble, they have no fear of mistakes, no shame in mispronouncing words, no hesitation in practicing what they hear. And because of that, their brains fire at maximum speed, building neural networks faster than the greatest supercomputer on the planet. Now let's look at you, the adult trying to learn English. What do? You sit quietly, nodding, afraid to speak because you don't want to sound foolish. You hide behind textbooks and apps, thinking if you just learn enough rules, you'll eventually have the courage to open your mouth. But guess what? That's the trap. That fear of looking stupid is exactly what paralyzes you and slows your learning to a crawl. The child learns fast because they don't care about being perfect. You learn slow because you want to sound perfect from day one. You shackled yourself to an impossible standard, and it's strangling your progress. There's a scientific reality. Your brain learns fastest under 2 conditions: high emotional intensity and high frequency of exposure. Emotional intensity means your brain prioritizes what matters to your survival, your goals, or your deep desires. High frequency means repetition that creates long-term memory. Put those 2 together, and you got the formula for rapid mastery. That's why a child in an English-speaking environment learns the language in months, while an adult in their home country struggles for years. It's not about age, it's about urgency and immersion. I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I met a young man from Eastern Europe who could barely string together a sentence in English. He had been studying for 6 years, but when I asked him a simple question like, "What do you want to do with your life?" he froze, his hands shook, his eyes darted around, and he whispered broken words, terrified of being wrong. I told him bluntly, stop treating English like a school subject. Treat it like oxygen. He didn't like that. He thought I was being harsh. But then he got an internship in London where no one spoke his language. Suddenly, he had to order food, answer phones, talk to customers, and survive in English every single day. 3 months later, he was fluent enough to argue, to joke, to tell stories. 6 years of timid study wasted, 3 months of full exposure, and the dam broke. That's the difference. That's the raw, ugly truth. And yet, most of you cling to the excuse of time. You say, I'm too busy, I can't move abroad, I don't have the environment. Let me destroy that excuse right now. You don't need to fly to America or London to create immersion. You've got the internet, you've got podcasts, YouTube, movies, audiobooks, live conversations. You can flood your brain with English 24 hours a day if you want. The problem is not opportunity, the problem is discipline. You'll binge watch Netflix in your own language, but you won't watch it in English. You'll scroll social media for hours, but you won't follow English-speaking accounts. You'll listen to the same songs in your mother tongue, but you won't challenge yourself with English lyrics. Don't lie to yourself. It's not that you can't, it's that you won't. The brain is a muscle. It grows when you stress it, when you challenge it, when you push it to its limit. If you want to learn English fast, you've got to overload your brain with it until it has no choice but to adapt. That means listening to English in the morning while you brush your teeth. That means narrating your own life in English as you walk down the street. That means forcing yourself to think, to argue, to even dream in English. And yes, that means opening your mouth and making a fool of yourself in conversations. Because fluency is not built in silence. It's built in sound, in mistakes, in repetition, in sweat. Neurological studies show that the more senses you engage, the faster you learn. Reading alone is too slow. Listening alone is incomplete. Speaking alone is not enough. You need the full combination. See it, hear it, say it, write it. That creates multi-sensory reinforcement, which builds deeper neural pathways. That's why if you hear a phrase, repeat it out loud, and then write it down, your brain locks it in far more effectively than if you just glance at it on a page. Learning fast is about engineering these reinforcement loops deliberately, not waiting for them to happen accidentally. And let me address the elephant in the room, accent. So many of you obsess about sounding perfect like a native speaker. Let me tell you something. You don't need a perfect accent to succeed. You need clarity. You need confidence. You need speed of thought. People don't judge you for your accent nearly as much as you think. They judge you for hesitation, for insecurity, for lack of flow. So stop wasting time polishing every vowel and start focusing on speaking fast, often, and without fear. Fluency is messy before it's clean. I want to burn another excuse. Grammar. You've been brainwashed into thinking grammar is the key. Let me break it to you. It's not. Grammar is the skeleton, but vocabulary and usage are the flesh and blood. Grammar alone won't make you fluent. You can know every rule in the book and still sound robotic. Fluency is about patterns, rhythm, and instinct. It's about hearing phrases so many times that they roll off your tongue without conscious effort. Grammar helps later when you polish your speech. But at the start, focus on flow, not perfection. And here's the brutal truth. Learning English very fast isn't about intelligence. It's about obsession. It's about hunger. It's about whether you are willing to rewire your daily life around the language. Are you willing to swap comfort for speed? Are you willing to stop translating in your head and start thinking directly in English? Are you willing to embarrass yourself 10,000 times so you can own the language in 1/10 the usual time? That's the test. That's the price. I've seen people go from 0 to conversational in 3 months, from conversational to fluent in 1 year, but only when they burned the bridges behind them, when they committed fully, when they treated English not as a hobby, but as a necessity. And that's what you must do if you want speed. You must make it a necessity. You must create pressure. Because the brain doesn't change under comfort, it changes under necessity. Now, let's go deeper. Think about the biology of memory. Every time you practice English, you are strengthening synapses, tiny connections between neurons. At first, those synapses are weak, fragile, easily broken. That's why you forget words after a few hours. But with each repetition, each usage, each emotional experience, those connections get stronger, thicker, coated in myelin that makes signals travel faster. That's why, after enough exposure, you don't just remember a phrase, you own it. It becomes automatic. You don't think, you don't translate, you just speak. That's fluency. And that's exactly where we're going to pick up again. That's fluency. That's the state where English stops being a subject in your life and starts being a part of your identity. And let me tell you something raw. Most of you never reach it because you never stay in the fight long enough. You dabble, you test the waters, you flirt with the language like it's a weekend hobby, and then you complain when you don't see results. But the brain doesn't reward dabblers, it rewards addicts. You've got to get addicted to English. You've got to crave it, to hunger for it, to reach the point where not a single day goes by without you immersing in it. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you need to study 8 hours a day with a textbook. That's not addiction. That's punishment. Addiction is when you look for English everywhere, naturally, like oxygen. Addiction is when you watch your favorite show, but this time only in English. Addiction is when you switch your phone's language settings, even if it feels uncomfortable. Addiction is when you deliberately surround yourself with English until you stop noticing the discomfort. Because here's the truth, the first phase is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. You're rewiring your brain, and rewiring hurts. But that pain is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that change is happening. I'll give you another story. I knew a man from Brazil who moved to Canada with zero English. On his first day at work, his boss shouted at him in front of everyone because he couldn't understand a simple instruction. he went home humiliated. He could have quit, blamed the boss, told himself it was unfair, but instead he turned his humiliation into fuel. He told me later, I decided that no one would ever make me feel small because of English again. From that day forward, he worked, studied, listened, spoke, and practiced relentlessly. He forced himself to talk to strangers every single day. Within 6 months, the same boss who humiliated him promoted him because he became one of the most reliable communicators on the team. Pain was his teacher. Humiliation was his accelerator. That's what I mean when I say emotional intensity drives learning. Most of you run from embarrassment. That's why you're stuck. You treat mistakes like scars when they're actually medals. Every mistake is proof you're in the arena. Every awkward sentence is a workout for your brain. Every time someone laughs, you get stronger. If you don't quit. You want to learn fast? Then fail fast. Fail more times in a single week than most people fail in a year. That's how you accelerate the process. Let me take you inside the neuroscience again. The amygdala, the emotional center of your brain, has a direct line to memory formation. That's why you never forget the embarrassing moments of your life, the heartbreaks, the arguments, the triumphs. Those memories are tattooed into your brain because of emotional charge. Now, what if you use that same mechanism to learn English? What if instead of hiding from situations that scare you, you ran toward them? What if you deliberately put yourself in high pressure, high emotion scenarios where you must speak? That's how you hack the brain. That's how you turn biology into your ally. I've seen people do this in remarkable ways. A young woman I coached in Asia joined an online debate club in English. At first she froze, stammered, and barely contributed. She wanted to quit after her first session, but she stuck with it. Week after week, she faced the fire. Her brain was on high alert every time because the stakes felt real. People were listening, judging, challenging her. And you know what happened? Within 3 months, her confidence exploded. Within 6, she could hold her ground in heated arguments with native speakers. Not because she memorized grammar rules, but because she leveraged emotion and necessity. And I want you to really let this sink in. Fluency isn't knowledge. Fluency is performance. It's not about what you know. It's about what you can deliver under pressure. You can memorize 10,000 words, but if you freeze when someone asks you, how's your day, you are not fluent. Fluency is the ability to speak without hesitation, to understand without translating, to respond without panic. And that only comes from live practice, from putting your brain in the fire over and over again until performance becomes automatic. Now let's tackle the excuse of age. People love to say, children learn languages faster. I'm too old. Absolute nonsense. The science says otherwise. Yes, children are fearless. And yes, their brains are flexible. But adults have advantages children don't. Discipline, reasoning, strategy, and stronger connections between memory and meaning. An adult can learn a language faster than a child if they approach it correctly. I've met people in their 50s and 60s who became fluent in under 2 years because they were disciplined, hungry, and relentless. Stop blaming your age. Your brain is still plastic. It still grows. What it lacks in innocence, it makes up for in focus. So here's the formula I want you to engrave in your mind: intensity, frequency, necessity, emotion. That's the engine of rapid learning. Not dabbling, not memorizing for an hour a week, not praying for fluency to come like magic. Intensity, flood your brain with English. Frequency, do it daily, hourly, constantly. Necessity, create situations where you must use it. Emotion, attach your pride, your future, your relationships, your success to this skill. When those four forces collide, your learning speed explodes. Let's go deeper into practical application. Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning and decide to live one day fully in English. From the moment you open your eyes, you narrate everything you do in English. I'm getting out of bed, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm making coffee. You listen to an English podcast during breakfast. You read an English article before work. You text a friend in English instead of your native language. You think in English as you go about your day. You watch a movie in English at night, and before bed you write a short reflection in English about your day. That's just one day. Imagine doing that every day for 3 months. Do you understand how fast your brain would adapt? That's not theory, that's biology. But here's the catch. Most people won't do it. They'll say it's too much, it's unrealistic, it's hard. And they're right. It is hard. But that's exactly why it works. Hard is where growth happens. Hard is where transformation lives. You've been told learning English should be fun, easy, and natural. That's marketing. Real speed requires struggle. Real mastery requires sweat. If you're allergic to discomfort, you'll crawl for years while others sprint past you. Let me share another example. I met a man from Turkey who set himself a brutal challenge. He refused to speak his native language for an entire year. Every conversation, every phone call, every thought, he forced it into English. His friends thought he was crazy. His family laughed at him, but he stuck to it with military discipline. 12 months later, his English was sharper than people who had studied casually for 10 years. Why? Because he engineered necessity, he burned his safety net, he didn't give his brain the option to retreat. That's what creates speed. And here's the final truth I want to hammer into you. English is not just a language. It's a weapon. It's access. It's power. It's the difference between being locked in a small world and being able to walk on the global stage. The faster you master it, the faster doors open. Careers, relationships, opportunities, freedom. Every excuse you make delays those doors from opening. Every day you hesitate, someone else out there is grinding, practicing, failing, and accelerating past you. So stop waiting, stop whining, stop treating English like a side project. Decide today that you'll live it, breathe it, and own it. Force your brain into immersion. Chase embarrassment. Multiply your exposure. Attach your emotions to every word you learn. If you do this, not only will you learn English very fast, you'll become unstoppable. Because at the end of the day, fluency isn't about language. It's about character. It's about whether you have the guts to go all in, to embrace the discomfort, and to demand more from yourself than anyone else will. That's the ultimate test. And if you pass it, English will no longer be your struggle. It will be your weapon, your freedom, your future. Now tell me, ladies and gentlemen, how many more excuses are you willing to make before you claim it?